It is that time of the year again. So at the end of 2022, I sat down and made a video talking about my photography year in review. And since then, a lot of things have changed. Around that time, I became a full-time photographer. I quit my job to basically do photography and video production full-time. Video production being working with a production company, making commercials and other videos, and YouTube as well. And since then, I have grown a lot as a photographer and technically a filmmaker as well, although I don't really consider myself a filmmaker. So in last year's video, I broke it down month by month, all the photos I took and the accomplishments I achieved. We're going to do this year's a little bit differently. I was going through looking at all of the photos I took and all of the videos I've made this year, and I think I definitely accomplished a lot. But I also let myself down in other ways. I don't think I took as many photos this past year as I really wanted to. I kind of fell into the trap of, if I'm gonna go out and take photos, I should be making videos as well to go along with the photos. And that's a lot of work, so I found myself not going out to take photos as much as I wanted to. But at the same time, I still took my camera with me pretty much everywhere I went, and I still documented my life. But those aren't the type of photos that I would necessarily always share online or on Instagram. Which is okay, because I think that's really what photography is about at its core. I set a goal at the beginning of 2023 that I wanted to focus more on photographing smaller towns and the more rural, rundown parts of America rather than, big cities. And for the first half of the year, I think I did a pretty decent job. I kicked it off by taking photos of this small town not too terribly far away from where I live, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, called Walnut Cove. And I really loved those photos, and also made my way to Madison, North Carolina as well. After that, I kind of fell off for a little bit, but then it kind of all ultimately culminated in my Route 66 road trip I took back in April. I drove all the way across the country, and I started my Route 66 trip in Oklahoma, and it ended in Amboy, California. And honestly, I took some of my favorite photos that I have ever shot on that trip. From Oklahoma to Texas to New Mexico to Arizona and California. Photographing Route 66 was always a dream of mine. It was my first time ever driving out west, and the only other time I've been out west was when I went to Oregon for my honeymoon. But other than that, I've never been to the Southwest. And I've always been fascinated with the Southwest, whether it's because of old Western movies or just the history and culture behind Route 66. I'm a big history buff, so it just made sense to drive out there and experience a lot of these places as they are deteriorating before they're actually just completely gone. So that was definitely my highlight of the year, not just in photography, but in general. If you're a photographer and you live in America, or even outside of America, and you have the ability and the time to drive Route 66, I would highly recommend it. The highlights for me definitely consisted of Tucumcari, New Mexico, and Amboy, California. Out of those two, I still can't make up my mind on which one was my favorite. Tucumcari, it's definitely a bigger town. Amboy, there's not a whole lot to it, although it is very photogenic. Tucumcari is the kind of place that you travel to and visit, and it really feels like it's trapped in time. You can tell the better days of the town are long past. Sadly, I was only able to spend about an hour or so walking around Tucumcari, photographing everything I wanted to, and I didn't even get to photograph everything I wanted to. So I hope one day in the future I have the time to go back there, and all of these places that I saw that I did not get to stop at are actually still there. Amboy is much smaller. It pretty much just consists of Roy's and a couple small buildings here and there. There's the post office, which I'm not even sure if it's still in use. Then there's an old church behind it as well, which was really cool to photograph. So if you ever plan on driving Route 66, those are the two main locations that I would highly recommend checking out. After I got done filming that series, the road trip did not end. I went to a couple other places. I went to Monument Valley in Utah, and then I made my way to Colorado. I did not take that many photos in Colorado, and I only had one evening in Monument Valley, and I wasn't even actually able to get into Monument Valley, so we were kind of stuck outside, but I got some really nice photos there that I'm proud of. And it was after that trip that I think I felt uninspired almost in a way, because I just went on this grand road trip, but I felt like all of the photos that I could take in North Carolina just couldn't compare to what I took driving out west. So rather than taking more photos, I just kind of focused on making YouTube videos. I still took photos here and there, but there was like a solid 3-4 month period where I did not get out and shoot nearly as much as I wish I would have. So I think that's definitely something I need to work on in 2024. But it's not like during that whole time period I wasn't picking up my camera, because I was still filming weddings, I was still filming videos with the production companies I worked with, which is great, but it's not really fulfilling to me. Back when I started photography, obviously it was just a hobby, and then it slowly transitioned into a job, even if it wasn't a full-time job. Well, let me break it down. When I began photography, it was a hobby, right? Then it becomes a job, even if it wasn't a full-time job. And then I quit my normal job and I become a full-time photographer. But in reality, I'm not really a full-time photographer, although if people ask me what I do for a living, I say, oh, I'm a photographer. The reality is, photography is back to being a hobby for me. Most of my income now comes from doing video work, whether it's with these production companies and whatnot, which I think is a nice balance because it allows me to stay happy with my photography and not get burnt out. I still do some photo work here and there. I've started working with a remodeling construction business recently, doing photos for them, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I don't plan on stopping that. One thing I've struggled with for my photography is if I'm doing a lot of photos for work and nothing for personal fun or enjoyment, I get really burnt out really easily. Because for me, it's just personally not fun doing corporate headshots or photographing weddings. So I think with my YouTube channel, I found the perfect balance, because very early on, I quickly realized I can make money taking the photos I actually want to take by just making videos about me taking the photos I actually want to take. And that's where the idea for my photo walk videos comes from. Like I said, I'm not a full-time YouTuber yet, and I don't think I would ever classify myself as a full-time YouTuber. At heart, I think I will always be a photographer, maybe just a photographer who also makes YouTube videos. But even now at the end of 2023, I'm making enough money from YouTube across AdSense, affiliate links, and my website selling Lightroom presets that I'm able to pay a lot of my bills. I have my goals set for 2024. I want to start landing some bigger sponsors on this channel, but not too many to the point of where it becomes annoying and every single video is a sponsored video. And I think I'm on track to where in the next 2 years or so, I could possibly consider YouTube my full-time job, and I can continue to take the photos I enjoy taking. And I am very fortunate and thankful to be in this position to where I have all of you guys who watch my videos and have allowed me to get to where I currently am. Sometimes I go back and watch my old videos and I can tell I've come a long way, not just as a YouTuber, but as a photographer as well. So even though I haven't taken as many photos as I would have wanted this year, I know I've still really grown as a photographer. You can just look around and see that I've come a long way. I have a dedicated space now where I can go to work. I can edit my photos here, I can edit my videos here, and being here just inspires me to do more. Because if there's one thing I've learned after 1 full year as a photographer, is that there's always more that you can be doing. And I have the routine that I come here pretty much every day at around 8 a.m. and I stay until about 2 or 3 p.m. And I come in here and I just zone in and I focus on what's next. Now, I don't agree with the whole hustle and grind culture that you see preached to you all the time on the internet. Roughly, I spend probably maybe 6 hours a day here, only on weekdays, so I'm not working 12, 14-hour days here in the studio. My time elsewhere now is spent actually out taking photos or working on sets. In fact, I think my goal for 2024 is to actually spend even less time here at the studio and even more time actually out taking photos. So it's about that time of the year in North Carolina where it starts to get pretty cold outside, and I'm not a big fan of the cold, so I'm not going to be going outside as much to shoot. So my goal is to really figure out my plan for 2024 and nail that in. And then once the time comes for photography, once the weather starts warming up, which is typically about March, that's when I plan on spending less time here and more time actually out traveling and taking more photos. I feel like another reason I went through that 3, 4, or 5 month period where I did not get out and take as many photos is because I was anticipating the release of the Sony a7C-R. So over that 3-4 month period, the rumors for this camera and the a7C II, they were in full force. And I was like, well, I have all these ideas for videos, but I would rather wait until I have this camera to make these videos. But then once this camera came out, I didn't have much time left in the year to actually make these videos. because my favorite time of the year to take photos is when it's, there's leaves on the trees, when it's actually green and when everything just doesn't look dead outside. And now everything looks dead after only like a month or two of shooting with this camera. But I shouldn't let that limit me as a photographer, and I'm still gonna try and get out and shoot as much as I possibly can. Because I'm not gonna let myself fall victim to the same mistake I made this past year. So I still have all of those video ideas from earlier this year that I want to bring to life in 2024. My main goal is to help all of us grow as photographers, myself included. I want to share more of my knowledge that I've learned as a photographer over the years with you guys, and test my limits and try new things. And whether I succeed or I fail, I think there's something me and you guys both could learn. So with that, thank you for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to help support me. And I hope I could inspire you guys to get out and take more photos. Go out and shoot.